Hey, can I eat this?" While organizing a package sent from my hometown, Samantha asked me. When I turned around, Samantha was holding an instant cup noodles in her hand. "Have you never tried it before?" I asked, somewhat incredulously. Samantha nodded deeply in response. "Really, there are people like that. You're like a living treasure." I said this with a hint of sarcasm. "What's that supposed to mean?" Samantha puffed up her cheeks, looking a bit angry. "Go ahead," I said, feeling a bit regretful for teasing her too much. Samantha, somewhat happily, put the kettle on. It was like watching a child trying to make instant cup noodles for the first time. She was intently reading the instructions. "All you need to do is add hot water and wait for 3 minutes." I wanted to say that, but I just watched her without saying anything. Wow, what is this? It's delicious. I never knew someone trying cup noodles for the first time in college would react like this. That's honestly what I thought. And I felt again how different the world Samantha and I lived in were. I met Samantha right after I entered college. During an orientation for new students, there was one woman who stood out. It wasn't her actions or words that made her stand out. It was her attire that was clearly different from the rest. Even I, who knew nothing about brands, could tell she was wearing something expensive. She seemed to be aware of standing out. In a group of acquaintances, she seemed a bit reserved. As the host urged us, students took their seats. I was startled, because that woman was sitting next to me. Coming from a local high school, I was the only one from my school to attend this university, so I had no one to talk to. I had nothing to do but check the pamphlet over and over. So, the conversation of the group the woman was in caught my attention without trying. "Samantha, why are you dressed like that? It's not like it's the entrance ceremony." That's how I learned the name of the woman next to me was Samantha. Samantha replied, "Well, it's an important event, so Mom told me to wear this." But still, a suit, and Calvin Klein at that, you could have dressed more casually. I listened to the woman's comments and thought she had a point. My connection with Samantha began in an unexpected way. Having been in the tennis club in middle and high school, I had decided to continue playing tennis in college. Samantha was also among the new members of the tennis club. Seeing her, I only thought, there's that woman. However, a chance to get closer to Samantha occurred during a welcome event for new students. As the event got more lively, first-year students started introducing themselves. The host called out names in order of the roster, and each called student introduced themselves in their own way. After a while, I noticed Samantha next to me becoming restless. I realized it was because her turn was coming up, having seen the roster beforehand. "My name is Samantha Johnson. Nice to meet you." Samantha spoke up to that point but then seemed at a loss for words. Unsatisfied with her soft voice, a senior student chimed in. "We can hear you." Samantha visibly flinched at that comment. It seemed she couldn't find the right words to say. The room fell silent, and everyone's eyes turned towards Samantha. She looked troubled. "I'm Justin Miller, from Nebraska. I'm a complete country bumpkin who doesn't know left from right. Nice to meet you." Though not called upon by the host, I suddenly introduced myself loudly. "No one's interested in a guy's introduction," a male senior jeered. Ignoring that, I attempted to continue my introduction. Then, the host, trying to control the situation, called the next freshman's name. "Thank you." As I sat down, Samantha, sitting beside me, whispered. "You're welcome," I replied, but it was this exchange that quickly brought us closer and led to us dating. It wasn't me who initiated it. It was Samantha. After a club activity, while cleaning up, Samantha approached me. I wanted to thank you for the other day." She wanted to thank me for the help I offered during the freshman welcome event. I had no reason to refuse, so I accepted her offer. I was surprised at where she took me. It turned out to be a French restaurant. Moreover, it seemed to have been featured in the Michelin Guide. Until then, I had never eaten such fancy food. I can't believe she's going this far to thank me for something so small. Who is she really? I wondered. But even I, nervous in my first high-end restaurant, was put at ease by Samantha's gentle demeanor. Her clear eyes, fair skin, and carefree smile made me feel captivated as the meal progressed. After that, we dined together many times. Samantha would take me to fancy places. I would take her to typical fast food restaurants. The level difference was a bit absurd, but at that time, it was a thrilling experience, exploring each other's unknown worlds, filled with lots of laughter and great fun. Eventually, Samantha began coming to my apartment every day, and we started living a semi-cohabitative life. My mom was a hardcore saver, and growing up with that, I naturally adopted a frugal lifestyle. But living with Samantha, I keenly felt the differences in our family backgrounds. One time, "What are you doing? What does it look like?" "Cleaning. It feels good to do it every day, right? Why don't you just hire a maid?" And another time, "Hey, what are you doing?" "What? Can you see? I'm cooking. Aren't you hungry? You cook by yourself. That's amazing. You're like a chef." No, it's pretty normal. But the surprises didn't stop there. Her approach to my birthday gifts, Christmas presents, anniversary dinners, and such were way beyond what I could imagine. The amount she spent. No matter how much I worked part-time, I couldn't match what she was doing. "You don't have to spend so much money." I once said that. "I'm doing this on my own accord, so Justin doesn't need to worry about it," Samantha always answered nonchalantly. "How about coming over to my place this Sunday? My dad wants to meet you." One day in our junior year of college, Samantha suddenly said this to me. I was taken aback. Meeting her father, what did that mean? I knew Samantha was the daughter of a local construction company president and that she had an older brother by 2 years. But I had never met her parents. As I had started to think about a future with Samantha, I saw this as a good opportunity to get to know her parents and agreed to visit her family home. The day I first visited Samantha's family home, I hesitated in front of the building. It was a far more magnificent mansion than I had imagined. "What are you planning to do from here?" Samantha's father, a stern-looking man, asked me that morning, sensing my nervousness. "I'm serious about continuing my relationship with Samantha." My voice was shaky as I replied, "No, what I want to know is not that. I want to know how you envision your future with Samantha." He probably wasn't fond of beating around the bush. Samantha's father asked me directly. "I plan to get a stable job, and once I'm settled, I hope to marry her in the future." Samantha looked surprised at first, then blushed and smiled at me. "I see, understood." Her father said nothing more after that. "You passed my dad's test, it seems," Samantha murmured on our way back from her home. I was puzzled, and she explained. "Dad brought out his favorite brandy, didn't he? He only drinks that on very special occasions. That he shared it with you means he's accepted you." Her words sobered me up completely. After graduating, I got a job at a public employment security office. Wanting to do something helpful for others, I consulted with seniors and career advisors before deciding. And in my 3rd year of working, I married Samantha. In hindsight, I suppose the root of all problems was my ignoring the obvious differences in our lifestyles. And it wasn't just with Samantha. I felt it with a wedding present from my father-in-law, too. That present was an apartment. Apparently, it was a property developed by my father-in-law's company, with the top floor of a 20-story building prepared for us. I repeatedly declined, saying it was beyond our means. However, My father-in-law told me, "You just need to become a person worthy of living in this apartment." I had no reply to that. Making the apartment in my father-in-law's name was the most I could resist. Samantha quit her job and became a homemaker. Though she worked at her father's company after graduating, I doubt she really did much there. As a homemaker, Samantha's lifestyle hardly changed from before our marriage. I made it a routine to call Samantha when leaving work. It was to encourage her to return home. Yet, she would return home around the same time as me, often even later than I did. Every day, she comes home with her hands full of ready-made dishes. These aren't bought on the way home. She brings them from her parents' house. "Every day you don't need to go that far. I once said that," Samantha replied casually. "But it's given to me, so it's okay. I'm not causing anyone any trouble." After several such exchanges, I stopped bringing up the topic of meals with Samantha. There was no sign she did any housework either. Concerned, I once asked her about it. "It's fine. A helper comes to take care of it when asked," Samantha said without any sign of embarrassment. When we were dating, it was my place, so Samantha couldn't just let anyone in. But after we got married and she became a housewife, I thought she would naturally do the housework and take care of the home. However, the significant difference in values made me gradually feel distanced from Samantha. One day, I asked Samantha how much we were spending each month. The amount she mentioned left me shocked. It was way beyond my salary. "I'd like us to manage within the range of my salary each month," I requested. "Really? Why? We can just get the extra from my parents. There's no need to worry about it." I lost my temper at her words. "We need to live within our means. When will you graduate from depending on your parents? Consider my position a bit." Samantha seemed unable to understand my feelings. "Why? It's my family, after all. What's wrong with relying on them a bit? My parents are happy with that, too. It's a matter of degree. In your case, it's just too much." Our arguments continued without reaching a resolution. At one point, during a heated argument, Samantha shouted, "I don't want to live such a miserly life. If you don't like what I'm doing, let's just get a divorce." "Okay, I understand." I agreed. That happened 1 year after we got married. The next day, I got a divorce form, filled it out, stamped it, and presented it to Samantha. Then I left the house. I was glad the apartment was in her father's name. Back to living alone after a long time, I felt a bit lonely but also enjoyed the freedom. I reverted to the frugal lifestyle I had since I started living alone in college. The divorce was finalized. And about 10 years later, "I'll do anything. Please give me a chance." While working, I thought I heard Samantha's voice from a distance. I couldn't see her because of the partition, but it sounded like her. "I need money right away, so a day job would be best." It definitely sounded like her. "Excuse me for a moment," I told the client, pretending to have work, and stood up. Standing in front of the seat where the voice came from, I saw the client's face. I was taken aback. It was indeed Samantha. I knew she would come, I thought, seeing her. But I couldn't change my assignment, so I returned to my seat. After finishing with the client, I hurriedly stood up. Then I looked around for the seat where Samantha had been sitting. But I couldn't find her. I went outside. "Samantha," I called out almost instinctively. Samantha, recognizing my voice from behind, turned around hesitantly. "Justin, you're still working here." She looked embarrassed. It was unclear whether it was due to her shabby clothes or the fact that we were meeting at the employment office after such a long time. "It's been a while. Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine." We spoke briefly, then silence followed. Do you have time this evening? After work, let's talk for a bit," I asked. Surprised, Samantha nodded. I didn't have anything particular in mind to talk about. Honestly, I didn't know what to say during this unexpected reunion with my ex-wife. But seeing Samantha, I couldn't just ignore her. After work, Samantha was waiting at the entrance of my workplace. We then went to a nearby cafe. It's been 10 years, I remarked, to which Samantha nodded. I didn't ask why she was looking for a job. I didn't need to. I had an idea why she was at the employment office. Then Samantha started talking. My dad's company went bankrupt. I was aware of this. Some of her father's former employees had come to me for consultation. I'm sorry for belittling your lifestyle, calling it poor. I was the foolish one. It took me until this age to understand what you meant by living within our means. Losing everything after Dad's company collapsed. I now painfully realize I'm someone who can't do anything on her own. Samantha carefully chose her words as she spoke. She mentioned that her father's apartment, where we lived, was sold. Now she's living in a one-bedroom apartment with her family of 3. Her father had become depressed, and her mother was taking care of him. Samantha's brother, apparently fed up with the family, had left and was untraceable. Samantha, with no work experience, was struggling to find a regular job and was barely making ends meet for day labor. Thinking about it now, it's unbelievable. Spending tens of thousands on a single meal. How many days of work does that equate to? I almost couldn't believe this was the same Samantha I knew 10 years ago, considering her speech and attitude. By the way, I've been trying out some of the saving tips you told me about when we were dating. Cucking is surprisingly fun. Even a little bit of saving makes a big difference. I'm sorry for mocking it back then. Samantha said, playfully smiling and clasping her hands in front of her mouth. We then talked a lot about saving techniques. The opposite personalities we had when dating were exciting and fun. But spending time with her now, sharing similar values and thoughts, gave me a sense of comfort and happiness I hadn't felt before. When leaving the cafe, as I was about to pay, Samantha said, "Let me pay, I've got it." No, I invited you, but you listened to me. It's only fair. It must have been a bit of a hassle for the cashier, but we had that typical argument at the register. Okay, then, let's split it, Samantha suggested, and I couldn't help but smile. The old Samantha would never have budged in situations like this, usually just leaving a $100 note and walking out of the store. So, hearing the word "split the bill" coming from her was unexpectedly surprising to me. On our way to the train station, something caught my eye. "Just wait here for a minute," I said, and asked Samantha to wait for me in a nearby park. A few minutes later, "Here, this is for you." I handed Samantha an envelope. What is this?" "It's $5,000. This should last you a few months, right? Day laboring only leads to living day by day, and that's no good. This is for your living expenses until you find a stable job. You don't have to pay it back." "No, I can't accept such a large amount," Samantha protested, but I couldn't help smiling at her words. "Don't say that. Remember all the gifts you gave me back then. Consider this a return favor, and please accept it." Hearing this, Samantha burst into tears. "I will definitely work and pay you back. Thank you, Justin." After that, we occasionally met up. Sometimes, I gave her job advice and recommended companies that hired inexperienced workers and had good reputations. Eventually, Samantha secured a job as a factory worker at a place I recommended. When I checked with President Thompson about how she was doing, he said, "Oh, she's a great addition, a bit naive, but she's eager to learn and work hard. The long-time workers, especially the older ladies, find her adorable. Since Samantha joined, there's a brighter atmosphere around here." Hearing this made me very happy. Then, a year later, Samantha handed me something. It was an envelope containing $6,000. "What is this?" It's the money I borrowed, and a little extra as thanks. I didn't need to use half of what you lent me, but it was a huge help. Thank you so much," Samantha said. "Money really changes people," I mused aloud. Samantha looked puzzled. I was thinking about the old Samantha. Back then, she didn't appreciate the value of money because she never lacked it. Now, Samantha, having earned money through her own hard work, understood its importance. But deep down, she was always kind-hearted. Seeing this, I thought, maybe with the Samantha of now, we could start over. Of course, having been divorced once, I wasn't sure if a fresh start was passable. But I didn't need an immediate answer. We would spend more time together, and this time, without looking away, I would slowly consider our future. My name is Alex. I have a wife named Emily, whom I married about a year ago. Emily and I were classmates in middle school, but we didn't really interact much back then. However, we reconnected at a high school reunion and got closer after coincidentally sitting next to each other, which led to us dating. Emily, with her modest and kind personality, is not much of a talker, but she always listens to my stories with a smile. The time I spend with Emily is always warm and peaceful, and thinking about our future together felt like a natural progression. We get married in our 4th year of dating, when we were both 24 years old. And even after getting married, our tranquil happiness continued, and we recently celebrated our 1st anniversary. I'm a typical office worker, and Emily works as a nurse. On a Friday night after work, we met at the restaurant where I proposed to her. Sorry, I'm a bit late because I changed my clothes at the department store's restroom. About 10 minutes past our meeting time, Emily showed up wearing a beige dress. She probably changed her clothes after leaving work, considering she usually goes to work in casual attire. It's all right, shall we go in? I always love seeing Emily in her daily life, but being with her dressed up for a special occasion like this, after a while, makes me feel a bit nervous and excited. The food and drinks were just as delicious as they were a year ago, and our conversation felt even more enjoyable than usual. I was so happy to be celebrating our 1st anniversary together, and to show my feelings, I gave her a modest bouquet of flowers. It was a bouquet full of baby's breath, which Emily likes. I'm not usually the romantic type, but I decided to try giving an anniversary bouquet, inspired by a celebrity couple who mentioned it as their secret to a happy marriage. I was embarrassed, but seeing Emily's happy face made it all worth it. Here's to many more years together, we said to each other, laughing, and with that, our anniversary dinner came to an end. Filled with immense happiness, I felt that together with Emily, we could overcome any challenges that might come our way, even as our family grows. But it seemed like a major test for us arrived sooner than I had expected. About a month after our 1st wedding anniversary. I work in sales, and around 3 p.m., I finished my last meeting for the day. After checking with my boss, I was told I could head straight home. I was excited to get home early since Emily also had the day off, so I drove back quickly. I thought about texting Emily while waiting at a red light, but I wanted to surprise her. So I decided against it and instead bought 2 of her favorite cream puffs at a convenience store on my way home, just as I was about 10 minutes away from home, near an intersection. I saw a familiar face right next to a stopped signal. It was Emily. Since she was off, I wondered if she had gone out to eat with friends. But as I watched, to my surprise, there was a man of similar age beside her, and they looked happy, holding hands. I couldn't believe what I was seeing and rubbed my eyes, looking over and over again, but it was unmistakably Emily's face. I was curious about what was happening, but the light for my lane turned green, and cars behind me started honking, so I had to keep driving. I told myself that Emily couldn't possibly be having an affair and focused on my driving. But I was certain I saw Emily walking hand in hand with another man. My thoughts were all over the place, and I ended up parking in a nearby large park's parking lot, spending some time alone to think. But no matter how much I thought about it, I couldn't come to a clear conclusion. Eventually, I decided to go home and observe Emily's reaction. When I got home around the usual time, Emily greeted me with her usual smile, saying, "Hi, how was your day today?" Yeah, it was fine." Her usual demeanor caught me off guard. Was she not feeling any guilt? Or could she act this way because there was nothing to feel guilty about? But they were holding hands, and there's hardly any innocent reason for two adults to do that. The more I watched Emily behaving naturally, the more confused I became. Today, we're having an asparagus party, and his grandma sent her a lot of asparagus, so she shared some with us. Emily said cheerfully, heading towards the kitchen. Anna is Emily's best friend from middle school, and I know her from our club activities back then. Oh, really? I couldn't quite focus on the conversation and gave a lackluster response, to which Emily looked at me curiously and asked, "Aren't you happy? You love asparagus, right?" "Yes, I am. I need to thank Anna," I replied hastily. Had she really met Anna after being with that man? But there was indeed a lot of asparagus. Had I misinterpreted the situation? Or was she meticulously preparing this to deceive me? Doubting Emily as she cheerfully prepared dinner pained my heart. I still wanted to believe in her, I think. In the end, we had dinner as usual and spent the day like any other. She was really happy about the cream puffs, and she seemed like the Emily I always knew. The next day, after leaving for work, I texted to Anna to ask about the asparagus. "Did you really meet Emily yesterday and give her asparagus? This approach should not raise any suspicion." Soon after, I got a reply from Anna saying, "Yes, I did. Emily was so happy and grateful because you love asparagus." So, Emily wasn't lying after all. I couldn't believe that Anna, known for her strong sense of justice, would help cover up Emily's affair. I tried not to think too much about it, wondering if I had just misinterpreted what I saw. As I did, life seemed to return to its usual, calm routine with Emily. Just when I started to forget my suspicions and thought our peaceful days were back, I saw something I shouldn't have. It was a beautiful day, so during my lunch break, I decided to eat in the park while on my outside sales rounds. I often come to this park and usually sit on a bench in front of the fountain, but when I got there, I noticed a couple sitting there. So, I sat on a bench in the shade, at a distance where I could still see the fountain. While eating the lunch Emily prepared for me, I thought about how nice it would be to have a picnic with her in the park. As I was looking at the couple on the bench in front of the fountain, something unbelievable caught my eye. Emily. I was so shocked that I couldn't help but utter her name. Yes. There she was, sitting cozily with a man I didn't know. Emily was smiling her usual happy smile at the stranger. I couldn't believe it, but I knew it was definitely Emily. There was no mistaking it. While I was still in shock, the two of them stood up and walked away, hand in hand. Was she so into this guy that she didn't even notice me sitting nearby? If she had a change of heart, I wished she would just tell me honestly, but it hurt to see her trying to please both of us. Later, after somehow finishing work, I went home at the usual time. Emily was there, seemingly just back herself, saying, "Hi, I just got home too, so I'll hurry up and make dinner." How could she act so normally? Was she deceiving me for a long time, and lying had become second nature to her? "Where have you been?" I asked. At work, you know," she replied. Emily is a nurse at a clinic, and she's usually at work on weekdays. I knew that, but I saw her in the park with a man during the day. It seemed like Emily had no intention of telling the truth. She was determined to deceive me to the end. I finally had enough and said, "You don't have to lie anymore." Emily looked genuinely puzzled and asked, What are you talking about?" I couldn't play along with her act anymore. I took out what I had prepared and said, "I can't trust you anymore. Please leave." In my hand there was a divorce oath. "Hey, what do you mean you can't trust me?" Emily asked, her face looking like she was about to cry, clearly confused. It's amazing how she could produce tears even though she didn't seem sad. I fought this while feeling unable to explain everything from my own mouth. "Maybe you should think it over. I won't be coming home tonight." With those words, I left the house. Just a short while ago, we had celebrated our first year together, looking forward to our future. I never imagined such a future would come. Filled with despair, I spent that night at a nearby business hotel and went straight to work the next day. There was no contact from Emily during that time, but around the time I finished work, I received a text from her. "I've thought about it, but I can't find anything that would have upset you so much. I'm sorry if I unconsciously made you feel bad. I want to be with you, Alex, and I'm willing to work for it. So, I want to talk face to face again. Please contact me whenever you're ready. I'm really sorry." The text was very much like Emily, sincere and heartfelt. If only it weren't for the fact of her infidelity. After such a betrayal, still lying like this, I just couldn't understand her intentions. If she's so happy with that man, she'd be better off without me. But then, I thought, maybe it's not right to keep running away without having a proper conversation, even if we were supposed to be a couple who could talk about anything. With a bit more calmness, I started to think that way. What I saw and felt. Maybe if I tell everything, Emily might be honest with me too. But, given the fact that there was an affair, I can't imagine living like before. Thinking that, I just replied, "Understood. I'll come home tomorrow." Then Emily texted back, "Thank you," and I stayed at the business hotel I had reserved for that night. The next day, since I had a discussion with Emily after work, I was a bit nervous while working. Again, I had a business meeting near the park, so out of habit, I went there. After arriving, I thought that I should have avoided this place since it brought back bad memories, but since I had already parked, I decided to quickly eat and head back, so I walked to my usual bench. As I was heading to my usual bench with my lunch bag from the convenience store, what do you know, there was another couple sitting there. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt like I was going to stop breathing. I walked past the couple, trying to calm my racing heart, and sat down on the bench I had used the other day. Then, nervously, I glanced at the couple's faces, and sure enough, it was Emily. My mind went blank. After being confronted with divorce by me, tearing up, saying she couldn't believe it, apologizing, and agreeing to talk today, there she was, happily having an affair in the midst of all this. I couldn't understand what Emily was thinking at all. Sadness, anger, a variety of emotions surged, but I was also possibly feeling fear due to not understanding her actions. Then, today, the man left the bench first, leaving Emily alone. Unable to hold back anymore, I stood up and walked towards Emily. I grabbed her arm and said, "What are you thinking?" Then she replied, "What do you mean?" using polite language and a puzzled expression. Was she mocking me? I couldn't understand. "What do you mean?" But as I said that, I noticed something felt off. Somehow, she seemed like a complete stranger. Indeed, she looked like Emily, but something was different. "Are you not Emily?" When I said that, the woman looked a bit surprised and then said, "No, I'm not." That could have been interpreted as a clumsy lie by Emily to get out of the situation, but her words became more credible when I realized that her demeanor was completely different from Emily's. Also, upon closer inspection, there were moles under her eyes and on her chin that Emily didn't have. I'm sorry. Was this woman, who I recently saw as Emily, actually her all this time? Or was it just today? My mind was in turmoil, but the fact that I had mistaken a stranger for Emily and confronted her was clear. Moreover, grabbing a stranger's arm and confronting her harshly, I could have been reported to the police. It was a mistake. I'm really sorry. As I deeply apologized, the woman made a surprising statement. By any chance, do you know someone who looks a lot like me? I immediately looked up upon hearing her words. Oh yes, my wife looks a lot like you, and that's why I mistook you for her. Then, she shared a surprising story. Her name is apparently Jennifer. She's the same age as Emily and me, and works as an office lady near this park. Jennifer mentioned that her fiancé, the man who was with her just now, working nearby, so they often meet like this during lunch breaks. The person I saw in this park the other day was indeed Jennifer. And she also told me that the woman I saw months ago at the crossroads, considering the circumstances, was likely her. Hearing all this, I felt tremendous regret. I had mistaken a look-alike stranger for my wife Emily, jumped to conclusions about an affair without proper discussion, and rashly pushed for a divorce. The one who needs to apologize is me, but Emily's wounded heart might not easily heal. What have I done? I lamented, forgetting Jennifer was there, and held my head in my hands. Then Jennifer said, "There's something else I haven't told you." What would that be? In my distracted state, I asked her. "I have a twin sister who I've been separated from since birth," Jennifer said. I was surprised again and asked her what she meant. "I was born a twin, but I hardly remember anything since my parents divorced when I was 4 years old. They never met again due to complications in their relationship, and it was forbidden for us to meet. I've lived all this time without even knowing if my sister was alive, but I never forgot about her. I've always wanted to meet Emily again." Jennifer said this with tears in her eyes, and it didn't seem like she was lying. So, Emily, my wife, is Jennifer's sister. But I had never heard Emily talk about having a twin. That's why, if your wife is my sister Emily, it's understandable that you mistook me for her. We really do look alike. Hearing this made me feel a little relieved. Although it doesn't change the fact that I hurt Emily by jumping to conclusions about her being a twin. While we were talking, it was time for both of us to return to work, so we exchanged contact information and parted ways for the day. I didn't know if Emily would forgive me, but I decided to apologize to her first and then talk about Jennifer, so I went home. When I got home, I saw Emily with a worried expression. Seeing her face made my heart tighten, and I immediately apologized. "Emily, I was wrong. I'm truly sorry." Emily was surprised as I suddenly apologized deeply. Then, I told her everything, including my suspicions of infidelity and meeting Jennifer. After hearing everything, Emily looked confused but first said, "Thank you for telling me. You don't need to apologize, Alex. It's my fault for not telling you about having a twin sister. I'm really sorry for troubling you." No, Emily, you don't need to apologize. I'm the one who jumped to conclusions. I'm truly sorry." Emily and I apologized to each other for a while and finally managed to share our misaligned thoughts. And for the first time in a long while, we were able to laugh together from the heart. Later, Emily also told me about her past. It was exactly the same as what Jennifer had told me, and it became clear that they were twin sisters. Emily hadn't told me about it not because she was hiding it, but because she was raised by her mother saying, "Think of your twin sister as if she no longer exists." I have met Emily's mother and know she's a wonderful person. It's hard to imagine such a kind mother-in-law saying those words to Emily, as if she wanted to erase a part of her past. But perhaps that just shows how strained the relationship between Emily's parents had become. However, like Jennifer, Emily had never forgotten her twin sister and had always wanted to meet her. While she told me this, she was in tears. Seeing her like this, I couldn't just stand by, so I suggested that we tell her mother and arrange a meeting with Jennifer. At first, Emily hesitated, but then she seemed to decide to follow her true feelings. Later, with her mother's consent, we arranged for Emily to meet Jennifer. Emily and I arrived at the park where we had agreed to meet much earlier than the scheduled time, but Jennifer also arrived 10 minutes before the appointed time. Well, they really are twins, I thought to myself. Seeing the two of them together for the first time, they immediately embraced each other. "I'm glad you're doing well," Jennifer said. "Jennifer, I've wanted to see you for so long," Emily said, starting to cry first. Then, almost at the same time, Jennifer also began to cry. They truly are twins, I thought to myself. They entered their own twin world and chatted happily, leaving me feeling like an outsider. But seeing Emily's smile, I was truly glad. Meeting Jennifer had made it possible for me to sit on this bench with such a peaceful heart. Seeing them happy together genuinely filled my heart with joy. Since then, Emily and Jennifer started meeting frequently, and a few months later, we were invited to Jennifer's wedding. Emily cried tears of joy, seeing her twin sister's radiant face on her big day. A year later, when Emily and I had a child, Jennifer often visited and cried with joy. I may not be a twin and can only imagine the depth of their bond, but just watching them fills me with happiness. The period when I suspected Emily of infidelity was not a happy time for either of us. But if it was a hurdle we had to overcome to reach this happiness, then maybe it was a past worth having.